This will be my first and possibly only video on security, this one dealing mostly with online security. I plan to try out different operating systems and give my opinion on them. Again, I don't consider myself a hacker. I probably have people subscribe to me and will in the future who know a lot more, but I am paranoid. I have to be, and it has paid off before. Some of this will be getting a little bit off track, but this will mostly be about staying safe on the internet and maintaining your anonymity when you need to. Some people, even hackers, or people involved in some of these markets may think some of this is extreme, but that's relative. You can have a normal online presence, but when it comes to anonymity, even if it's just a YouTube account where you have interests you don't want connected to your name, I think it's best to plan for the worst. I guess I should start off by stating the obvious. Phones can be tracked. Not just to see where you are, but who you know. With tower dumps, police can find out if you, or at least your phone, was in a certain area at a certain time. Even seeing which ones travel together from tower to tower. I assume the NSA knows any of that they want to. And when I say the NSA, I'm also speaking for the capabilities of the FBI. It was the FBI that was the first to make it public they were watching you through your webcam. That being said, a cheap phone on airplane mode with no SIM card is pretty safe. Could they remotely turn connections on and locate you? I would say probably. They have to have a way of forcing things through with those alerts. And unlike with computers, there is never a hard switch and you can't just solder off GPS chips on most phones. They are usually a part of other important hardware. And if you have a signal, they could have your approximate location. But your phone doesn't constantly broadcast its signal, and if you don't trust airplane mode, RF detectors are easy to make and cheap to buy. I recommend having one for a few reasons. I made a small discreet one that I can have and not draw a lot of attention. But this will pick up GSM, which is what will be used for the majority of GPS trackers police could put on your vehicle, any wire, or anything else that could be sending them a live broadcast. Jammers are also fairly simple but illegal, so you have to make them yourself. But back to your phone. If you have an RF detector, most of the time your phone with a black screen won't make it go off. It will occasionally for no reason, I guess when it's downloading something or whatever it does. Maybe it is the FBI checking in. But generally it won't go off until it first comes out of idle mode, or when you get or receive a message or phone call. A lot of GPS trackers use a SIM card that you dial the number to and it texts you back coordinates. It's the same concept. I doubt any of them constantly broadcast because it's a waste of battery life. Unless you are the FBI and can just pretend to be a mechanic and wire them up to someone's battery. So, if you can help it, avoid mechanics. Someone could always get into your car, but to do something like that, that would be the best time. Now, as far as phones being safe, the best thing would be a 6-inch tablet with NetHunter or something like that with no capabilities other than Wi-Fi. I don't think they make 6-inch tablets anymore, and it would be even harder to find one that could be rooted. But ideally as a mobile device I would choose that. I have heard about Linux Deploy or whatever it's called, where you run Linux off of mini SD cards. I'm not sure how they all work with a touch screen, but as far as secure communication, a Wi-Fi only device capable of running Tails and a few cracked passwords would be great. I like Bluetooth though because it opens up a lot of possibilities, but without a hard switch it makes me feel a little uneasy too. If you know you are going somewhere to commit a crime, obviously you can do without electronics for a couple of hours. But again, I believe in being prepared for the worst. I'm not thinking about the police locating me later because I seriously think I will have to kill someone when I go to the grocery store today. It's just that if I need to, it's nice to know that I can, and probably get away with it. That's a joke, but I'm kind of serious. If you are doing anything you don't want people knowing about, you need to constantly consider things like this and be prepared. That being said, you also don't want your behavior to come across as being unusual. Social media accounts, an active phone, and GPS spoofing can help with that, but if you are entirely off the grid, you know anyone is looking for you, that should be avoided entirely. When it comes to computers, computers are generally considered more secure than mobile devices. If you are educated on them at all, I would say that's mostly true, but not necessarily. I have mentioned the backdoor for Intel chips. While I don't think it's common that the FBI is using it to get into your computer, it's something to consider. It's unrealistic to see government and corporations as one big omnipotent entity that's out to get you. Why do you think Google started encrypting all of their traffic through HTTPS? I'm not stupid enough to think it's because they care about my privacy, but because they saw it's valuable. Now, if anybody wants that information, you pay Google for it. So yes, potentially they could work against you, and most likely will before they do anything that benefits you out of the kindness of their heart. But it's not just one big monster. Intel processors and AMD both have these. AMD because of some kind of deal with Intel. In my opinion, this is one advantage mobile devices have over computers. I think Intel had their Core Duo processors that didn't have this. Or maybe I'm wrong and those are just the ones you can flash another BIOS to and get rid of it. But I think the active management technology didn't come along until 2008 or 2009. The best computers for communicating securely with are these for a lot of reasons. All the new processors aren't really any faster, but there are certain things newer computers have an advantage in. You can crack WEP Wi-Fi with one of those computers and no hard drive. Just a 64GB live USB with word lists and enough room for an output file. But when it comes to hashes and stuff like that, you can't really do that on those. And you can get a different BIOS for some newer computers. I was trying out that Parrot operating system, and I don't know if it's just because it has that monitor at the top that makes you notice it, but you need a lot of RAM for it. Plus I need Bluetooth for some things. If you just want to talk without the feds being in your business though, Tails on one of those old computers is perfect. The only thing is I wouldn't use Tails from a public Wi-Fi hotspot or anyone I knew personally. I would get some passwords first at least. I would do a lot more than that, but for most people that's plenty. As I said, you can get some people's passwords with a 10-year-old computer missing a hard drive, but if you need a newer one, borrow one and use a live USB with Kali on it. That's all you need. Maybe a good external Wi-Fi antenna with an Atheros chip. That's always smarter than using your own stuff anyway. Get the passwords from a friend or relative's neighbors and use those for using Tails. You need to be really careful about setting patterns, and I may get into that later. But for anything really heavy, the necessity for avoiding routine is very real. You are a step ahead if you do all of this, and again, it's all relative to what you are doing and who you think may end up being interested. All police have unlimited resources to waste that they steal from taxpayers, so never assume you aren't worth it. Wasting money is what they do, but you know what I'm saying. Speaking of Tails, supposedly nothing is saved. It's all routed through Tor. I wouldn't bet my life or freedom on anything like that. I would never even have a hard drive when using Tails. I guess nothing is supposed to be saved to your RAM either, yet they recommend having at least 2 GB or 2.5, whatever it is. I never went as far as to not use a battery, so I could just unplug it though. I probably would if I was under surveillance or something, but if I think I'm under surveillance, I wouldn't be doing much of anything besides Bible study. Until I got bored and started messing with them. An alternative to those old computers for communicating, I guess, could be a single board computer with an ARM processor, but then you look like a weirdo in public. That's why I said that about the 6-inch tablet. If you could run Tails on something like that, you could just look like everyone else on a smartphone. I don't think you could build anything like that from one of those single board computers. Maybe just using the LCD from a phone screen. The only thing is, a lot of phone processors are better. If anybody is interested in building me one, I would buy it, assuming it would still work if reinstall everything. But anyway, you never connect to any public Wi-Fi. For people who don't know, anybody can fake those. The good thing about Linux is you can change your MAC address in the network manager. At least for every connection. If you are worried about police hanging around a neighborhood looking for a specific one, you need to change it in the terminal whenever you don't have it turned off. You can change your MAC address to match nearby computers and make it look like they are the ones hacking their neighbor's Wi-Fi. Change the BSS ID and channel of their router and everything. Eventually it will screw everybody's connection up, but if you don't live there, who cares? If the police were monitoring all of this, you could have a lot of fun. But that's why you don't do it from your own house. Depending on who you are and how well you blend in with your surroundings, it may be obvious. You can do all of that besides the channel, I think, just with the network manager. But you always need to make sure you set a fake MAC address before you connect to anything. As soon as you take anything off of monitor mode, and don't change it with the network manager, you should use the terminal, so if you disconnect for some reason it still shows the fake one. Another thing not to do on Tor if you don't want people to locate you is open PDF files. Tails is said to be safe, but when they say safe, I think they just mean it can't be saved to your computer. I'm pretty sure it can be used to locate you the same as it could be if you were just using the browser. Feel free to correct me on any of this. I may do reviews of Parrot as far as an everyday operating system. I don't get why people act like it's complicated or more complicated than Kali. It's annoying trying to install stuff the same way it is in Linux Mint. I think it's those same commands. But it comes with Tor installed already. When I said it seems like Kali is actively trying to prevent anonymity, it seems impossible to install anything like that, and all the other things like proxy chains are annoying and finicky. I like the idea. Again, feel free to correct me, but even though H.T.T.P.S is encrypted, your ISP can tell the difference between that and Tor. So connecting to a couple of those before you connect to Tor is the same or better than using a VPN, besides it being finicky and slow. Personally, I don't like the idea of anyone knowing my interests, some more than others. And I'm not talking about pedophilia, like these websites the FBI occasionally gets caught running, but just stuff I don't want to be associated with. When I talk about doing all this extra stuff, I'm talking about when you may be explicitly talking about any felony or committing one with what you say or agree to. The old account I had was like that, but me being paranoid, I took extra physical steps to protect myself. I think most of social media should be avoided, especially Facebook. I'm not against having a Facebook account to make yourself seem more boring and unassuming, but it's just that all of this stuff is stored. Your pictures and everything. And who knows what kinds of twisted things they are using that for to promote this surveillance state. Twitter seems like it could be used as a weapon anonymously. Kind of like ISIS, only if you were actually going against the government and not an arm of it. You have to be cautious about that too, though. Saying inflammatory things can get you in a lot of trouble. I'm getting off topic again though. I guess I will go ahead and wrap this up for now. There will probably be more on this later, but I will check Reddit soon and probably get back into research.